It began with silence. No alarms, no warnings, not even a flicker of light in the sky. Just children vanishing, as though the earth had simply misplaced them. One moment, laughter echoed in the backyard. The next, only the wind stirred the empty swing. Governments reacted first with denial. Systems showed no breach. No satellites recorded atmospheric anomalies. Parents screamed, and still the officials parroted protocol, helpless. But she knew better. The moment her daughter's room fell still, she knew. She wasn't an ordinary mother. Decades of classified missions had honed her instincts into weapons. Those instincts screamed now, tearing her into action. While others waited for answers, she calculated vectors, scoured comms, and cracked encryption nodes like paper. Something had touched her world, something that didn't belong. She would chase it back to whatever pit it crawled from. The abductions were surgical. Every target was between 5 and 12 years old. No trace of forced entry. Not a single camera captured a culprit. But the Huntress understood pattern recognition better than most governments. They were chosen, deliberately, by intelligence not of Earth. And they were not alone. Satellite anomalies showed dozens, maybe hundreds of similar extractions, globally. She identified signatures embedded in the static, gravitational pinpricks and atomic dissonance only quantum-level manipulation could leave behind. Earth's leaders floundered. Talks of international summits and interstellar diplomacy clogged the airwave. She packed weapons instead. She visited an old contact, a ghost from a past she'd buried. He owed her. That made him useful. What do you want with alien tech, Sarah? They took my daughter. The silence that followed was enough. He gave her access to a black site off New Kuru. There, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and secrecy, sat a stolen jump drive, Zorenth design. Incomplete. Unstable. Perfect for someone with nothing left to lose. The jump was rough. Painful. It tore through space like a scream through glass. She emerged scarred, but alive. The first human to leave the Sol system without permission. But she was not here for history. She was here for blood. The Zorenth didn't expect pursuit. They were old. Arrogant. A galactic caste with millennia of genetic refinement and technological superiority. They saw humans as base creatures, capable of little more than emotion and error. That error cost them everything. Their outpost on Lorien 3 processed abductees. Data harvested. Minds bent toward compliance. Sarah reached it within 47 hours of her departure. No warning. No declaration. The station ceased transmission 5 minutes after she arrived. A freighter passing through the sector sent the first distress call. The human is real, it whispered in terror. One woman. One ship. She ripped the station open like a fruit. Inside the ruins, she found traces. Not her daughter, but others. She memorized their names. She'd find them all. She interrogated survivors. Those too slow to die, too cowardly to lie. They broke easily. Zorenth physiology didn't tolerate pain well. Every one of them gave her a new trail, a node, a base, a name. One of them asked, before she slit his throat, "Why are you doing this?" "You took my child," she said, wiping her blade clean. "I'm taking everything else." The Huntress began to appear in whispers, rumors carried by trembling voices across starports and border worlds. A human female. Eyes like vacuum. Voice like steel scraping bone. She didn't ask for help. She didn't need it. At Varric Spire, she vaporized a slaver syndicate with borrowed plasma mines and a repurposed weather array. When asked her motive, she left only a message in blood. "Where are the children?" The message reached the Zorenth High Circle. They dismissed her at first. One human meant nothing. A fluke. A feral specimen. They redoubled indoctrination efforts. Increased psychic barriers. Injected dream suppressants into the younger abductees. Fear spread. Not from the children, but from the scientists. The children spoke of her in dreams. "She's coming," they said. "She's close. She has a knife for every one of you." They tried to isolate those who said too much. But it spread like infection. Hope is viral. And children remember love long after the needles forget their names. Sarah hunted by logic, not emotion. Emotion got you killed. She mapped the Zorenth logistics web, identified transit loops, and found the weak link. Sector Relay 9, a comms relay posing as a navigation buoy. She breached it with a modified fusion drill. 5 minutes later, she had a mirror of the entire subnetwork. The logs showed transfer coordinates, status of indoctrination, test failures, and a hierarchy of key facilities. Her daughter's ID was there. Still alive. Assigned to Fort Kirill, a deep space vault so remote that even most Zorenth considered it myth. She smiled for the first time in months. Her next moves were swift, precise. She seeded the comms net with phantom traffic, made herself appear on a dozen worlds at once, set fire to feints while she moved through asteroid fields and warlord territories. Aliens tried to intercept her. None succeeded. At Hellos Prime, a warlord named Turga tried to capture her for bounty. She fed him to his own pack beasts and broadcast the footage. The bounty was rescinded by sunrise. The Zorenth began calling her by a name. Translated, it meant the mother without mercy. She wore it like armor. Her body changed, scarred, starved, hardened by exposure to atmospheres that burned skin and muscles that bled under 3G pressure. She never hesitated. Her ship became her home, her knife her language. She rarely spoke. When she did, it was short, surgical. "Where is Fort Kirill?" Nobody answered. Until someone did. A deserter. Half crazed. Half drunk. Scared of the dream that kept playing every time he closed his eyes. You killed them. I saw it. You were a shadow." They screamed. "I heard it." She leveled her sidearm. He choked. I'll talk. Just make it quick." She did. The jump to Kirill was suicide. The coordinates alone required threading through 7 layers of nullspace and a dark matter web. She built her route from scratch using stolen navigation data and alien star charts. It took 3 days and nearly killed her, but the ship held. What she saw on arrival broke something inside her. Kirill was no fortress. It was a lab. A factory of horror. Cages in vacuum-sealed chambers. Neural nets pulsing with child screams. Her daughter's profile logged into a stasis chamber, Stage 3, final compliance. She breathed. Steady. Not yet. Too much to do. First, the perimeter. She cut power with a directed solar flare from a mined asteroid. Then, one by one, she took the guards. No gunfire. Just a knife and silence. Inside, the alarms failed. Emergency lights flickered. Doors opened without request. Children stirred. Some cried. Some remained still, eyes long dead. Then a voice, dry and cold, echoed through the station. "You are trespassing in protected Imperial space." She replied by jamming her blade into the speaker panel. Sparks flew. Her daughter wasn't in the chamber anymore. Moved. Transferred. Protocols showed emergency evacuation to Central Core. She moved fast, disabling automated defenses, overriding security with codes extracted from a dying officer's cortex implant. Her arrival at Station Varus was met with plasma fire. The aliens had been warned. She took cover behind a supply drone, returned fire, and closed the gap before they could adjust. 2 guards down, 1 left twitching. She stripped his comms node, hacked it, and listened. The name passed between whispers. Mother without mercy. It no longer carried sarcasm. It carried silence, the kind born of dread. Her path was a burn across star systems. Every data node she struck fed her the same message. They were relocating the children. Faster. Deeper. They knew she was coming. She had their encryption now. She ghosted their channels. She knew where they moved and how they lied about it. Every hour she listened, another child's coordinates locked into place. Her hands were blistered from manual navigation. Autopilot wasn't safe anymore. Too many minds. Too many lock-on satellites coded to detect her specific signature. She bypassed them all with analog flight patterns and a ship reinforced with scavenged stealth plates. At Kiro's bane, she found her first ally. A creature named Eroth, exiled from his own kind for mercy. He had seen what they did to children. He had stayed silent until her name reached him. He offered her something more valuable than guns: knowledge of the Crucible. The Crucible was a shipyard, but not for ships. It built minds, indoctrination modules, dream shapers, obedience engines, all designed to fracture a child and rebuild something pliant. Her daughter had passed through it. Eroth had coordinates. He also had a debt. He'd once sold a child to the Zarenth. He wanted to bleed for that mistake. She let him. The Crucible's defenses were built for fleets, not ghosts. She docked via a maintenance shaft used only during calibration cycles. She moved through vapor ducts and plasma conduits unseen. She had 6 hours before the Crucible shifted alignment. The labs were horrors. Children floating in neural gel. Eyes wide, limbs still. Teachers that weren't teachers, whispering obedience between forced dreams. She didn't stop to mourn. She catalogued every face, recorded every test, downloaded everything. Then, one by one, she shut the systems down. No explosions, no dramatics, just silence. A switch flipped. Children awoke, weak, confused, but breathing. She left them with Eroth's people. Said nothing. Vanished before they could ask her name. She wasn't there to inspire. She was there to take. The next jump brought her to the Rim worlds. Lawless, hostile, and perfect for hiding contraband lifeforms. A smuggler named Cray offered intel for protection. She gave it. He gave up a list of purchase orders. Human children, marked as low-risk experimental assets. One name glowed red, her daughter. Purchased by a high-tier Zarenth noble, destination unknown. Cray gave her something better: coordinates for the buyer's fleet. He warned her. They were elite. Untouchable. She killed them all. Took 4 days. She stalked the fleet from the outside in, disabling each vessel with surgical precision. She left one alive each time, always the comms officer, always to spread the message. She was closing in. By the time she reached the command vessel, the crew had already started mutinying. They were afraid to sleep. Dreams showed them Earth burning, not in conquest, but in retaliation. Their own fear projected her into myth. She found no children aboard. Just data. A final transfer. To a planet called Veltrack, deep in the red zone, considered uninhabitable by most species. That made it perfect for hiding something precious. The journey to Veltrack tested her limit. Radiation storms. Engine failures. Fuel reserves calculated by prayer. But she arrived. The planet screamed violence. Winds flayed metal. Gravity bent time at the equator. The Zarenth built their vault in a dead zone, shielded by adaptive camouflage and kinetic dampeners. She found it anyway. She used the terrain. Built weapons from junk metal and decomposed probes. Made explosives from coolant. Waited until a supply drop masked her approach. She tore through the outer layer. Breached their gate with a magnetic pulse. Slaughtered the guards in 38 seconds. One survived. She let him. Tell them. She's not a myth. She's a mother. Inside, more children. But not hers. She freed them anyway. They wept. She told them to stay silent, then vanished. Every base she hit gave her more. Names. Places. Logistics. She built a map so detailed it felt like she could breathe inside the Zarentha's mind. They weren't afraid of humanity. They were afraid of her. One person had done what 1,000 ships could not. The Resistance found her next. Humans from Earth, off-world settlers, ex-military expats. They begged to join. She refused. Too loud. Too slow. They slowed her down. She gave them intel, coordinates, missions. They followed. Died in droves. But they spread her name across the stars. Children began to fight back. In labs, in cells, in indoctrination rings. They used sharp edges and broken wiring. They said she was close. They said she'd taught them to survive. She hadn't. But hope did what training never could. The Zarenth changed tactics. They sent hunters. Enhanced. Augmented. Trained in human tactics. The first one found her on Yalvin Station. It didn't end well. She bled. For the first time, she nearly died. But she adapted. Studied the hunter's tech. Learned from it. Built countermeasures. Every attack made her stronger. Every wound taught her something new. She began leaving traps. Not for children. For the Zarenth. Data bombs, viral codes, blackmail loops, logic puzzles designed to fracture their AI systems. Entire fleets disappeared chasing phantoms she placed on purpose. Then she found the vault. It wasn't a lab. It wasn't a prison. It was a place where failed indoctrinations were stored. The ones who didn't break, didn't obey, didn't conform. Left to rot. Her daughter's name was not among them. But she found something else, a recording. A message intercepted. Her daughter, speaking to another child. She's coming. I know she is. She promised. My mom doesn't break promises. Played on loop. Again. And again. She broke something in that vault. Not physically. But deep. Quiet. The kind of break that bends iron and forges it into something sharper. Her next move was precise. She infiltrated the communication grid of the Zarenth capital ring. She embedded her own signal. One sentence. Return what you took. No answer. She embedded it again. Then everywhere. The message reached planets, stations, colonies. Billboards flickered. Broadcasts glitched. Warships looped it through internal systems. Children began to repeat it in their sleep. Return what you took. The High Circle met in emergency conclave. She knew. She was listening. She used their own infrastructure to map their escape routes, safe houses, and emergency vault. She followed. The Circle's third envoy died in his bed, throat slit. The second disappeared en route to his cruiser. The first begged for mercy. She gave him a bullet instead. Her daughter wasn't with them. But she found a document. A single-word project name. Eden. No location. No details. Just the name. She traced every file associated with it. Hunted signatures. Hacked biologs. Bribed, tortured, bled whatever knowledge she could. Eden was real. A private archive world. High security. Untouchable. Population, classified. Coordinates, scrubbed. Until she found one flaw. She had her daughter back. But this was no reunion. The girl was different. Eyes cold, voice steady, carrying the weight of alien conditioning and human resolve fused into something unbreakable. No tears. No words of comfort. Just a silent agreement. The hunt was not over. The Zarenth were regrouping. Their fleets, scattered but not defeated, consolidated with brutal efficiency. Their intelligence networks, fractured by her earlier strikes, were rebuilding. They knew the cost of underestimating a human mother, and they feared what she and her daughter represented. Her daughter, known as Lyra, learned fast. The conditioning hadn't erased her memories. It sharpened her instincts. She became a weapon honed on betrayal and survival. Together, they formed a new unit. Not mother and child, but huntress and shadow. The universe had never seen anything like it. They began by dismantling supply lines. The Zarenth relied on a series of relay stations for fuel, weapons, and indoctrination equipment. She hit the first one near Asteria 4 with precision. No warnings, no mercy. The explosions were calculated to cause maximum structural collapse without collateral damage to the prisoners she'd liberated before. Lyra hacked communication arrays mid-battle, turning enemy broadcasts into propaganda that undermined their morale. It was psychological warfare perfected through lived experience. She twisted their messages, sowed distrust between factions, and ignited rebellions on occupied worlds. Together, they moved faster than any fleet could follow. Every strike was a message. The children would be free, or the Zarenth Empire would fall. The High Circle's response was ruthless. They sent assassins, augmented beings bred for precision kills. They deployed psychic hunters, capable of sensing human emotions from light years away. But the bond between mother and daughter was an impenetrable shield. They adapted their tactics with every encounter. A notable attack on the mining colony of Xander showcased their synergy. The assassins struck at dawn, but Lyra's foresight had predicted it. She led a counter-ambush, using guerrilla tactics combined with alien technology scavenged from previous battles. The fight was brutal but victorious. Zarenth bodies littered the terrain. She knew the war was more than physical. It was a battle for the future of humanity. The children kidnapped, indoctrinated, were no longer victims. They were potential soldiers, spies, agents of rebellion. She had to reach them all. Their network expanded. Human colonies, once isolated and fearful, began coordinating resistance cells. The Huntress and Lyra became symbols. Ghosts whispered in hushed tones. Children in labs learned to resist the indoctrination. They learned to fight back. At a communications hub on Virex Prime, they intercepted a transmission. The High Circle planned a final gambit, Project Oblivion. It was a weapon, a device designed to erase entire planetary populations suspected of rebellion by releasing a targeted neurotoxin into the atmosphere. There was no time to waste. They mobilized quickly, moving through star systems on the edge of collapse. The closer they got to the weapon's location, the heavier the security became. Entire fleets orbited the target planet, armed with the latest in Zarenth technology. She devised a plan based on speed, precision, and deception. Lyra would infiltrate the surface facility, disabling the toxin's release mechanism from within. The Huntress would engage the fleet, buying her daughter time. The battle was fierce. Ships collided with the fury of storms, laser fire cutting through voids, shields flickering under barrage. The Huntress piloted with reckless determination, using every tactic, every trick, every ounce of her experience. Meanwhile, Lyra moved silently through the facility. Security systems detected her presence multiple times, but her training was superior. She hacked through firewalls, avoided patrols, and reached the control core. As the Huntress held the fleet at bay, Lyra fought the countdown timer on the toxin release. Every second was a fight. The computer resisted her commands, locking down systems in retaliation. At the last possible moment, she overrode the safeguards. The weapon disarmed. The countdown stopped. The fleet, realizing their failure, redoubled efforts. The Huntress was forced to retreat, her ship damaged but intact. She met Lyra at the extraction point. No words were spoken. They had won the battle, but the war raged on. They followed intelligence leads to the capital world of the Zarenth Empire, Zereth Prime. It was a fortress unlike any other, surrounded by layers of defense both physical and psychic. To penetrate it, they needed more than weapons. They needed allies. She reached out to the human coalition she had once kept at arm's length. She formed a council of warriors, spies, and diplomats willing to fight the Zarenth oppression. United, their combined forces began a campaign of sabotage and intelligence warfare inside Zereth Prime. Lyra became a symbol for the oppressed children, rallying those who had suffered and survived. Her voice over clandestine networks inspired hope and rage in equal measure. As the coalition's attacks intensified, cracks appeared in the Zarenth Empire. Rebellions flared on outer colonies. Officers defected. Supplies dwindled. The High Circle grew desperate. They deployed their most deadly weapon yet, a bioengineered monstrosity, a hunter designed to track and eliminate the Huntress and her daughter specifically. This creature was faster, stronger, smarter than anything they had faced. It tore through coalition forces like a shadow of death. But the Huntress and Lyra adapted. They studied the beast, learned its patterns, weaknesses. The final confrontation was a test of everything they had become. In a brutal battle that raged across an abandoned moon, they faced the monster. Lyra used psychic resistance techniques learned from the indoctrinated children, blocking the creature's attempts to hunt her mind. The Huntress struck with lethal precision, exploiting every opening, every vulnerability. When the creature fell, it was more than a kill. It was a declaration. The Zarenth Empire was vulnerable. The Coalition mounted a final assault on Zirith Prime. Battles raged in the streets and skies. The Huntress and Lyra led the charge, their combined fury unmatched. The High Circle's reign ended not with a dignified surrender, but with chaos and collapse. As the Empire crumbled, the freed children began to reclaim their lives. No longer prisoners, no longer victims. They became warriors, leaders, survivors. The Huntress looked at her daughter, no longer a child but a warrior forged by fire. Together, they had rewritten their destiny. The universe would remember them, not as victims, but as the relentless force that tore down an empire to save its own. Their story was only the beginnings.